Welcome, my name is Foyleman from modsonline.com, and what I want to do for you today is I want to take you through the process of installing the mod tools for Call of Duty 2, then using them in order to create a very simple, small test multiplayer map, and then I want to take that and show you how to compile it and play it into the game. And what I want to do is I want to go through the entire process so that you're not confused. I know this is very similar to many other games, but there's a number of you that are wondering, what should I do? How should I do it? And I want to take you through that process. So what I have already done is I have already went out and purchased and installed Call of Duty 2, the game, which is what is going to be required in order for you to utilize the tools. And then I have gone to modsonline.com and I downloaded the COD mod tools, which I am going to open up right now. I'm going to go to my computer. I'm sorry, this isn't important for you where you save the download that you grabbed. Here we go. Call of Duty 2 mod tools.exe. So make sure that you've downloaded this, and I'm going to go ahead and launch it. And this is going to install the Call of Duty 2 mod tools, and this includes Radiant, which is a mapping tool, which is primarily what I want to go over here. There are some other tools and documentation that's available along with it. So I'm going to just jump right through here. Yes, I accept. Blah blah blah. I understand everything. I'm going to install this in the default path. And it's very important that you install it in a default path. Now, I don't know what will happen if you install it on, say, if you have a G drive or a D drive, some other drive where you like to keep all your games and stuff. Because when you go to take your map file that, this creation that you created in Radiant, and you go to compile it into something that the game can play, I'm not sure that that not using the default C drive path will cause any kind of problems, any kind of errors. And that's why I recommend doing the default install path. Now, if you have tried it, you can give it a shot, see what happens on G drive if that is what you want to go ahead and do. I just don't recommend it, and I can't be sure of what's going to happen. Now, I've already installed the mod tools. I'm all ready to get started, and you'll notice that there are no icons that get installed with the game. So I'm going to have to call it up through my program files. Go over to Activision, Call of Duty 2 mods, and here you can see a number of different tools. And what we are interested in right now is Call of Duty 2 Radiant. And then later I'm going to show you how to compile your map into something that the game can play using these compile tools. So let's start up with the Radiant program. Now, one thing that you should know is that I have previously installed this before. So what I did not see here was a pop-up window that comes up and say, what is your default project file? Well, the default project file will be listed right there. So you click on it. It's a .prj file. And you click OK. And then this, what you see right here now, is going to load up. Now, what I have done is made my window a little bit smaller so that I can record a decent file size. I don't want to make it too bloated so that you can't download this file and watch the video when it's done. So everything is maybe a little bit smaller than what you're going to see, but you're going to see everything the same way. Now I'm going to quickly run through what you see here because I don't want to overly confuse you by not going over it. And if you already understand this editor from previous versions of Call of Duty or even Quake perhaps, then you can just skip right past this. So now what I have here is my 2D window. Here I'm looking at the X, Y. Now everything in the game is 3 dimensions. It's not like a painting where you only have left and right, up and down kind of deal. Instead, what you have is the 3rd dimension, forward and back. So you start off looking down the Z axis, and you have your X and Y axis here. Actually, I think it's X and Y. Well, here we go. I'm looking down the top, and this is your Z. And if I hold down the control and press tab, I'll switch to the front view. And now if I hit again, I'll look at the side view. And one more time, I'm back on the top, okay? So here's your Y and here's your X. How do I know that? Because when I click on here, I'm looking down the front and there's my X, left and right. Click it again, I'm looking down the side, forward and back. This is up and down. And one more time, there. Left and right, forward, back, up and down. Now what I have over here is called the Z window. The Z window is, hey look, here's your Z, up and down, here's your up and down. So now, by looking at these 2 windows together, I actually have my 3 dimensions, so it's a quicker way for you to jump around. This one does not change, but this one, with the Control tab, I can change the view. What I have over here is my 3D window, which you'll be seeing as you construct things. You'll see roughly what it's going to look like. It's a way for the editor to see what's happening. And over here, I have my texture window, which it gives me a preview of the textures that I can be using. And finally down here I have my console, which reports some errors or other information as I go along. And down here I have some other information, which is not as important at the moment. Perhaps we'll get into what the grid, the G, is, which is each one of these blocks is a grid of 8. And we'll get into rotation defaults and other stuff later. Texture size is a default of 1. So what I want to do is I want to just jump right into mapping, making my first map. So first thing I want to do is I want to select a base texture. The base texture is something that does not confuse the game with memory problems. It also creates a seal in the game. Now what's important to note here is with Call of Duty, as with Quake, what we're doing is we're adding to a void. The mapping world is just this big empty void space, like outer space, and what we're doing is we're going to add blocks, the mapping blocks, our walls and every bit of piece into this. And what we want to do is when we add a light in the middle of it, we don't want that light to be going off into space forever and ever, because our computer has to compile, has to put together the information and say how far does that light go and what is it lighting up, and it goes on forever and ever, and it would crash. It would say, you know what, there's a leak. The light is leaking out into the voidness and it's creating a problem. So what we need to do is we need to add to a void into a solid area, a sealed solid block, and in there is where we're going to play our game. So we need to start with a base texture that does not leak that light out. That's why I went through all this. Sorry. And that texture should be caulk. Okay, I'm going to go over to my textures and I'm going to load up. Let's see, I want my surface type. No, I want to go over to locale and I want my tools textures. When I load that up, I should find, as I scroll through here, I should find caulk. Here's my caulk. Okay, I'm going to select that. Now I have caulk as my default texture. And I'm going to draw out a box here. I'm going to left click and draw out just some box. I'm doing like 192 by 192 square because that's just big enough to get this idea across of what we're doing. Here you can see it's only one grid line high. Now, as I started to say, each one of these grid lines is 8 units. And here we go. That's how I know it's 8. And I can change these grid lines, because right now it automatically snaps to each one of those, which makes it easy for me to size things appropriately. And a good height for this is probably 128 units, because that gives me enough room to not feel cramped up by the player. So I'm going to stretch this box out over here. Now I am going to use a controversial tool here, and I may get some flack because of it, but what I'm going to do is I'm going to use the hollow tool here. It is a great way to empty out a perfect square, a cube, okay? Now, well, it could be a rectangle. It doesn't have to be a perfect square. And what it does is, I'm going to go ahead and click on it. You see what it did? Is it hollowed out this square. Now, I do not recommend hollowing out anything other than one solid square. Do not select like a whole bunch of brushes. Do not select any kind of other kind of strange shape. Otherwise, you could create errors. And that goes along with another tool, a CSG subtraction tool, which you should never ever use because it can create errors, and these errors are never found until later on, and it's too late. And you know what? This video is not long. There's not enough time for me to go into all the problems it can cause. Now, I could create this box, one brush by brush, which is probably a safer route to go. But whenever I'm just using a rectangle and I'm hollowing out a rectangle, go ahead and use a hollow tool. Otherwise, I recommend staying away from it because you don't want errors to show up after hours and hours of work, and then you have to go back and start all over, because to find that error is harder than to just start over again. Okay, another problem that this tool introduces is, you see there's overlapping. Well, maybe you don't see. I'm going to zoom in a little bit more. See all those brushes right in here? They overlap each other. So this wall is overlapping that wall, is overlapping that wall. That's also a bad thing to happen. What I'm doing, actually, let me point out what I'm doing to move around in here. That's my forward arrow key, my backwards arrow key, and my left turn, right turn. I like using the keyboard shortcut. Some people prefer other methods. Now, if I wanted to go up and down, I can hit D to go up. I can hit C to go down. I can hit A to look up, Z to look down. I can use the less than sign or the comma, whichever way you want to look at that, to go left, strafe left, and I can use the period to strafe right, and I like going that route. You could use your right mouse button and look around like this, A lot of people like to do that, but I run out of mousing space if I do that too much. I might make you sick. I'm sorry. I don't want to move too fast in here. Let me straighten up in there. All right, that's roughly where I was. Now, what I want to do, actually, I think it was facing one of these other ways. Good enough. Okay, what I want to do is I want to get rid of this overlapping. So I'm going to hold down the Shift key and left click the floor to deselect it, because they're all selected. That's why there's white outlines. Then I'm going to left click, Shift plus left click the ceiling there. And now these two are my ceiling and my floors, okay? And I'm going to get rid of the overlapping. See how I'm stretching all of those selected brushes at once by clicking outside and dragging up? Okay, I'm going to do the same with the top. So now that's inside. Now I want to take care of these walls overlapping. So I'm going to Shift click, and then I am going to see here I have this red. It's selected. Red, this one's selected. So I'm going to drag it in until it's just touching. Now if I leave it like this, you see I have a gap, which means I'll have a leak going on. We were discussing that before. We don't want any leaks. We want a solidly sealed up block. Alright, I'm going to hit Escape to deselect everything. Now I have my box. This is going to be my little map that I'm going to be working with. And what is it missing? It's missing some textures. We need some textures in here. So let me grab up some textures to put on the walls, on the ceiling, the floor, and that. So I'm going to go over to Textures. And I'm going to look under Locale, and I'm going to grab up like Stalingrad. Just some basic textures to get in on here. And I'm going to hold down the Control, hold down the Shift, and click one of the walls. What that did was, instead of selecting the entire brush, all I did was select just this one brush face. Yes, these blocks in here, they're called brushes, in case I didn't mention that. It's just like the palette of an artist. I think that's why they come up with the idea of a brush, because you can draw it out onto the screen. So anyway, I have just this one face, not everything selected, because I only want to apply my texture to that brush face. So I'm going to select one of these textures, just this standard brick. I'm not trying to get too fancy. Now I could go over here and Control Shift select this wall, and I'd have more wall selected. Or what I could do is hold down the Control Shift and click the middle mouse button to copy the selected texture to that wall. So you see what I did was I used a shortcut there to copy what I have selected and to paste it onto that wall. There we go. Now I've got the wall selected. Now I want to do the floor and the ceiling. We need these textures because the caulk texture is not going to do anything for us. So I'm going to hit Escape to deselect everything. I hit Escape a lot because I want to make sure I don't accidentally change something that I didn't mean to change. I just want to say change the ceiling now. So let's see what is in here that could be used on the ceiling. How about this darker concrete? Sure. Now I'm going to hit Escape, and I'm going to go to the floor. I'm going to put here we go. Put this lighter concrete on there. There we go. I just created my first room. It's missing a couple pieces, which we'll get to in a second, but here is, the basic map, basic room that we can play within. And before I continue, I'm going to save. I'm going to save this under, this is a pretty good directory here, program files, right here where it automatically put me, map source, okay? I'm going to give it a name. Since this is going to be a multiplayer map, I must type in mp underscore, and then I'm going to give it a name. How about we just call it Foyle for now. Now don't give it any weird characters. Don't put any spaces in the name. Just keep everything standard naming convention, no spaces, no weird characters other than the alphanumeric combinations, because those will create errors whenever you go to play their map, because the game won't understand anything other than this. If you want a space, put an underscore. Don't put an actual space. Okay, save that up. Now, you should save often, and sometimes even save under different names, because if this program were to crash while you were working, you'd lose everything, and that would be awful. So you'd want to save your map constantly. Just keep saving and save it under new names in case something goes wrong with one version. You always have another version to fall back on. It's a very smart idea, okay? So now we have our basic map. What are we missing? We're missing two very important things. We're missing a place for our player to start, and then we're missing light. We can't see. This is just a black solid room. It's, you can't see anything. So first thing I'm going to do is I'm going to put in my player. I'm going to put in a player right in this corner. So I right click, and this gives me all my options for entities. A player happens to be an entity, while what you see here are structural brushes, while these are not. Okay, I want to add a multiplayer spawn point or a single player. This is going to be a multiplayer map, so I'm going to enter a deathmatch spawn point. I'm going to put him in the corner. I'm going to make sure that he's on the floor, not sticking in a brush, not outside the brush, because those will all create errors. And then I want him to face this way whenever the game starts. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to press the letter N to bring up my entity window. And then this group of buttons are the different angles at which our little entity will be facing. So if I press this button right here, you'll see an arrow and the entity changed, and it is facing this way. So now the player, when he starts, he's facing that corner. And I'm going to press N to close the window because I'm done with that, and I'm going to press Escape because I don't want to have that selected anymore. And next up, let's throw in some lights into these three corners. I'm going to right click and put in light. Light is so common, they gave it its own little spot right here. And I'm going to put that in the corner. It doesn't matter where I put it. I'm just putting it right there in the corner. And I don't want it on the floor. I want it up near the ceiling. And there's some more things I need to do with this in order for the light to work. In Call of Duty 2, open up your entity editor again. You have to, first of all, give it a radius and 180. And you'll see what happens when I hit enter there. You'll see there the light is going to project at least that far in full intensity and then fall off to blackness. You can actually kind of see it in this window here. I'm going to move it around so that you can get a better idea what this looks like inside the editor. Pretty neat, huh? It's showing you right here in this view how the light is going to stretch across. And then I need to do one more thing. I need to give it a color. So I don't even have to do it from this window. I'm going to hit N to close up. If I have this window selected and I go to hit N, it actually enters the letter N. So I'm going to click on my map here and then click N, and it closes it up. So if you have a problem, there you go. And with this one light still selected, I am going to hit the K, the letter K, and that brings up my color window. And I can give this a color. You know, right now it could be a little white. I could give it a little bit of a yellowish tinge or something. How about I just give it something close to that, just a little bit off, so it gives some nice contrast to what's going on. I'm going to click OK because that's a good color. You'll even see that the color in here changed, which is important, so we can see what's going on in our map before we actually go to play it. Now I want to put another one of these lights over here and over here. So what I'm going to do is, instead of escaping and creating a whole new light, I am going to shift click to collect that. I am going to copy it. And you know, before I continue on the copy, I want to show you something about selecting things. If I were to go and select this entity, and I hold down the shift and click in here, it works. And that's because it is the uppermost entity. Now if I wanted to select the floor brush from this window, and I go to shift click, note that it selected the ceiling brush instead of the floor brush. And that's because it selected the uppermost brush. Entities take precedence over the brushes. So now if I wanted to be more precise on what I was selecting, I would select it from this 3D window over here. And that way I don't make a mistake on what I select. So let's make your selections over here. Now I'm going to hit the space bar, and what I just did was I made a duplicate, a copy of everything that I have here, but over here now. And then I'm going to drag that over here. That's a great way to make duplicates and just keep, there we go, and just keep making the same item over and over. And did you see? That was really easy. I was just space, move it over, and go. There we go. And you can get an idea of, let's see, I'm going to select that, and I'm going to see that's how the light's overlapping. And that block right there, that's our player spawn point, in case you weren't sure. And that's it. Now I'm going to hit escape to undo everything. I'm going to save my map again. And that should be it. I should be ready to play this game. Well, I should be ready to compile it, not to play it. Okay. So what I want to do is, I've saved the map. I am done with mapping. I'm going to close the mapping editor because I don't need that anymore. What I want to do is I want to go to my programs and I want to open up the compiling tool now. Compile tool. So I'll click on that, and that loads up right here. All right. Yes, I know there's all kinds of errors, and I didn't mean to hit quit. I meant to hit cancel. Let's see, Activision. Let's load this up. See, it's good that you see these little errors, because if you come up with them, you won't be confused when they come up. Okay, there. Just continue. I have no maps, right? Continue. What I need to do is I need to browse. I need to go to this folder that you see here. just to get rid of this silly error. Program files, Activision, Call of Duty, and map source, or just Call of Duty 2. Okay, done. Now I don't have. Now here's all the maps that came up. I don't have any maps selected yet, but note here's MP Foil, and these four came with the Call of Duty tools. You can actually open up these and you can see how they made the maps and use them as examples for creating your new maps, for coming up with ideas, figuring out how they did something. It's a great way to learn, to find out what's going on. Now, if I had a whole bunch of maps that I wanted to keep control of, I could actually right-click on my map and say Add to my maps. Now I go over here, and here is one in my map. So you can actually filter out what you want and what you want to keep over here. I can remove. It's pretty neat. Now, let's get into compiling this map. I want to compile a BSP because a map file is what we use to create the map, and a BSP file is what we use to play the map within the game. It's just the compiled version. I want to compile for MP only. No, not MP. Let's not just do Viz, okay? We want to compile lighting. We want to, connect paths. Let's not run the map when it's done. Let's just first compile, and then we'll go down to here and run the selected map manually. That just to avoid any issues. Now I could also go into some lighting options and do some extra stuff, make it extra pretty. I don't think I need to do that. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to select my map, and I'm going to hit the compile button. And I'm going to watch this to see if any problems pop up. If I see warnings, errors, or anything, which I don't see, which is good, then I don't have to go back and find out what is wrong. Otherwise, you want to go back and fix whatever errors that do come up. Okay, I'm done. I want to run the selected map, but you know what? This is a multiplayer map, and something special still needs to be created. I have to create this GSC file before I can continue, okay? So to create this GSC file, what I need to do is create a text-like file and just give it a special name and put a couple lines of code in there. What I want to do is I want to go over to my game folder here, which is going to be in Program Files, Activision, Call of Duty 2. I want to go where my compiled map is. Okay, that's going to be in Main, Maps, Multiplayer. And here is my compiled map files, all right? That's my point file, my BSP file. Okay, that's what I said we needed. And what I now need here is a GSC file. So what I'm going to do is right-click and create a new text document. I'm going to name it the same name as my map, MP foil.gsc. Hit enter. Yes, I want to change it. Okay, good. Now I need to edit this. I can open it, and if it doesn't know what to do, it doesn't know what to do. Okay, select a program from a list. Okay, I want to use Notepad. You can use whatever you like to use as a plain text editor. Don't use something like OpenOffice or Word document, because it can introduce some weird characters in there. Want a plain text editor. And select OK. There we go. There's my basic text. Now I need to put in some simple information here, because without this, when it goes to load the map, it's going to not be able to find the necessary files that it needs to load the map, and it's just going to give you some error that says, hey, this is broken, it doesn't work. That's because it's missing this file. So what you want to type in here is main, open and close the brackets, and let's get the curly bracket open. And on the next line I want to say maps /mp /_load main, open and close my brackets, semicolon, hit to the next line and close my curly bracket. Oh, there we go. That's what I need. I need to enter that in there. So just to go back over this in case you can't read it so well on your screen, it says main, I open and close some brackets, I opened a curly bracket, went to the next line. This tab that I put in here, it's just for looks. It makes it easier for me to read later. It doesn't have to be there, okay? Maps /mp /_load main, open and close my brackets, semicolon. And then on the next line, I close up my curly bracket, which means I closed up my little function there. And it is all ready to go, except, I got to save it first. There we go. I can close that. I have my little GSC file there. And I've already compiled the map. All I need to do is try and play it. So I'm going to run the selected map right from here. I don't even have to go into the game, open up the console, and type some strange things in there. So give it a second while it loads. Things may get a little weird. All right. I want to go to spectate. Let me just select one of the classes. It's just a multiplayer game, and there I am. Here I spawned in this point, facing that corner. I have a light. I have a light. I have a light. My brick, my concrete. I can run around. I can shoot, throw grenades. I can do it all. There you go. And that is how you go ahead and you create a map for a multiplayer map anyways for Call of Duty 2. Yes, I want to leave the game. And now it's your job to get started and get these maps together. And then get these maps submitted to modsonline.com. And you know what? If you have any questions, another reason, go to modsonline.com. Their forums are exploding with questions about Call of Duty 2, and so many people there are there to help and get you through whatever kind of problems that you have. So I hope you enjoyed this tutorial, and I'm not sure that I'm going to be making some more, but you know what? Go to Mods Online. We have a number of tutorials, a number coming in. There's text-based, there's video, as you can see here, and it goes on and on. And we also don't just cover Call of Duty 2, but we cover a number of other things. And one more thing before I go, you might want to check out modsonair.com or modsonline.com and check out our podcast where we're going to go over some games, which is going to be picking up again in another week. We took a little hiatus there. And enjoy mapping. That's it. Take care, everyone.